What is up, guys? So I'm making a video today on which ATVs part out the best, what to look for, what do you want? Like, you want to make some money, so which ATVs do you want? So this is kind of a list of my preference of what I like to part out and what I don't like to part out. Some machines, they do part out well, they do make money, but they're not as good. So the more Chinese parts they make, the less interested I am in that machine. So one of the main ones that I get through here a lot are the brute forces. The 750s, 650s, and then the 650 V2 Arctic Cat, same thing. They do well, especially considering the heads. If you can get them, if they have a good crank, you get a lucky day. On those are worth quite a bit, and then there's a bunch of stuff that I just trash, but like a good set of cases, that's 250-ish. Crankshaft, if you end up with a good crank, that's 350 to 400. And then each of the heads, if they're in good shape, obviously, wear to the journals and stuff like that, you're gonna get, I think it's about 250 a head on the 750s and closer to 200 on the 650s. Another one that I really like to part out are the Honda Foreman 500s, whether that be ES, foot shift, two-wheel drive, four-wheel drive. The parts just sell. They do sell. I mean, we really don't have a lot of Foreman stuff left on the shelves. The heads generally sell pretty quickly. I think the heads like $250, $300 now. The cylinders, they sell. I mean, everything on the machine sells. You got the rear diff, front diff, if it's four-wheel drive, the electrical components. The gauges, for the most part, the gauges are almost always working on the Foremans. And then all your internals, like your clutches, stuff like that, actually sells off of them, where some of these ATVs, they really don't sell. Another one that we like to do is the Kawasaki Prairies. The 650 and the 700 are kind of just like the brute forces, so you end up with the same kind of part prices, and they're pretty much identical parts. All the electronical stuff on the electronic, whatever, like your belt box actuator and the front diff actuator, the front diff on the brutes and those prairies, the 360s and the 650s, 750s, that front diff, it fits across a whole lot of machines. And if you got a good diff, those are $500 every time. They're very easy to sell, and even if you don't have a good diff, you can still get like $150, $200 out of it as a core, because they can rebuild it with the new cases. So those ones are pretty good. Now this one, they didn't used to do well. When I'd say back in like 2018, 19, I didn't part out very many sport quads. I really didn't prefer the race quads just because they didn't part out very quickly. But since post-pandemic, they part out very well. So the 400EXs, LTZ 400s, KFX 400, DVX 400. I've done a few 450Rs, whether that's TRX or the KFX 450R does really well, but they're hard to find. And then YFZ 450Rs, those sell really well, especially all of them have pretty pricey crankcases. Cylinder heads aren't cheap. I mean, just overall, those machines, post-pandemic, they part out very well. The parts bring very decent part prices versus some of these other machines. I like to do the Polaris Sportsmans, but not all of them. So you want to make sure you're getting a newer Sportsman, like the 99, 96 to 99. Those ones don't do too well, just because there's so many knockoff parts on the market now. They really don't do that well. But if you buy one that's, I think, 05 and up, 06 and up, the gauges, when you get into all of that, the gauges, electrical components, the differentials, all of that, they do really well. So the Sportsman 700, 600, those two do real well as well. They have that twin crank, and if that crank's good, it's the same crank from the 600 to 700, and it's the same one that's in the Rangers. And that crank is $400 or $500. I don't think anyone knocks that one off as of right now. And then you get into stuff like this, like these Recons. This one's not getting parted out. But these Recons, they don't part out very well. Being that it's a smaller bore, less stuff gets broken. So like on something like this, you're able to sell like the muffler and almost every one of these 250s, even the Ozark 250, LTZ 250, all of the rear ends have some value, but you got to be cautious buying these of not spending too much on them, because like you get the rear end, if the muffler's good, Honda seats are so cheap that there's no money in the seats. Maybe your racks, they knock these racks off now though too, so I think you can get a brand new rack now for 120 bucks. So I mean, you get the diff, the muffler, the head. There's really not a lot of value in these. That's just the Recons, just about any of the 250s. That does not apply to two-strokes. The two-stroke quads, they will part out well just because the parts are sought after. Some of the kids quads do okay. Like I've parted out a few of the LTZ 50s. I have one currently. They're not that great. I mean, it's good for filler. If you're trying to do this full time, the parts do sell, but they're just, it's nothing special. It keeps parts flowing. So if you're familiar with listing on eBay, the more you list, the more you make. The more you list, it's like it helps their algorithm to actually push out your product, and it boosts your sales. If you're looking for like big bore quads, like the Recons, they do pretty well. The 680 I purchased a few weeks ago, that one was a pretty good machine to part out. The Hondas, the seats are never really worth much because you just most of the time get a new Honda seat pretty cheap. But for the Recons, I was pretty surprised to see that the rear knuckles on like a Recon 650 are 250 bucks a pop. So if you go to buy one and it's got good knuckles and you're getting it for 150, 200 bucks, that's double your money just in the rear knuckles. That doesn't even apply to some of the other stuff. I really don't like parting out Can-Ams because the way Can-Am made most of their parts so interchangeable over the years, what you'll end up paying for a lot of the newer model Can-Ams, like the Renegades and stuff like that, there's so many products already on the market that it's a little hard to get top dollar for product. So yeah, I mean, if it really boils down to it, big bore does equal to bigger dollar amounts in parts. So if you're looking for something 600, 700, 500s, all of those machines generally do part out pretty well. So if you get it's all about getting it at the right price. As long as you can get it at the right price, it's easy. It's hard to lose. But I won't say I won't. I haven't lost. I have bought ATVs that it was sunk so long and left water in the engine for so long that nothing was salvageable, and the rest of the machine was just, since it was rode like that all its life, it just wasn't salvageable. I mean, we were able to probably break even, if that, probably not. Thanks for watching. If you have a question, feel free to reach out down in the comments down below. Like and subscribe.